welcome back to Mechabellum.
Wow. Well done, Sweet Pea. Today, to start us off at the Mechabellum University, where we cover both beginners' strategies all the way to advanced placements. Today, we're going to be going over the fortress in our unit highlight series. How you doing, sweetheart?
Good. I already have a comment.
Okay.
So as we're watching and playing the game, everything's just kind of looks normal size, all relatively the same size units.
Yeah.
Look at the people
Yes.
beneath this guy's foot.
I love that it actually shows the units to scale. The fortress is one of the few giant units currently in the game, and he is massive. Absolutely colossal. And with that huge unit comes a huge HP pool, a slow-moving, high attack with pretty good splash damage, relatively low attack intervals, medium range, that can only shoot the ground. Does all that make sense?
Yeah.
So you deploy this guy as kind of like your centerpiece to your army. He's like your Godzilla. You can have 100 little dudes with guns, but this is your Godzilla. He's meant to just soak up a lot of damage. He can deal a lot of damage, but he's very slow. And because of that, he can suffer from constantly shooting the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Remember those little crawlers that we've seen before many times? Those little guys will absolutely slow down his progress. They'll all chase in. They'll nibble at his feet. It's like a sumo wrestler fighting a bunch of like rabid chihuahuas. You know,
Yep.
it's just he's gonna have a bad time. He'll win, but it's not gonna be much fun. Over here in the tech configuration, we can also see some of the things that we can give him. The most common and probably most useful, at least in my opinion, of these is the barrier. Barrier is just a shield. It increases every time your fortress levels up. It provides protection to him as an extra unit bar, health bar. In this case, it's an extra 40,000 HP, but also that damage is shared to anybody within the shield. So you see that little guy walking right by his feet?
Yeah.
If he had the barrier and you JFK'd him, he'd be totally fine. You should see her face. She's like, what? It also has a range enhancement. I really rate the range enhancement, but not so much on
How
the...
much does it enhance? By 40?
By 40. So it's roughly a 50% increase. Well, in this case, it's a 40% increase. Good at math.
For sure.
For sure. It might not seem like it, but because the fortress has a relatively slow attack interval, it's not the slowest in the game. But because he has a relatively slow attack interval, getting him that extra range can add a few extra shots. Not only that, because he hits really hard, having that extra range is great. It's just normally you're using your fortress kind of to absorb damage more than you are using him to deal damage back to a lot of different units. He's just meant to get online, shoot at one thing, and normally that thing is coming at him. Something like a steel ball, other fortresses, a Vulcan, tanks. You know, he's normally killing things that are approaching him. He's not really going after backline units like Stormcallers or things like that. We have our
High density, high damage.
exactly. We have our favorite upgrade, the anti-air barrage. Remember recording this in our viewer games?
I think so.
It's when the Overlord shoots a whole bunch of missiles out the top of him,
Yeah.
and like 90% of them miss.
Yeah.
It is hot trash. I hate this. I don't know why it's the way that it is. I think it's either...
It's comical to see when you see just like these scary missiles just miss. You're
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
It literally, like, go back and watch our viewer games. I think it's one of the most recent ones that we posted. In it, Fortress is shooting at like two groups of Phoenix, and it kills one Phoenix, and the rest of the missiles seem to pass right through the Phoenix. It's really weird. Also, this damage doesn't scale. At least the way that I read it, and I've tested this somewhat, it doesn't scale. So that 900 damage per missile doesn't work very well as Phoenix and Overlords and other things get more and more HP. So I'm not a huge fan of this, but it does have its... if there's a really high density of units, it works okay. High density of air units. We have our Fang upgrades. So all of the giants well, no. Yeah, all of the giant units can spawn things. So this guy spawns Fang. Fang are actually really good units.
Every 28 seconds?
Every 28 seconds. So it's on a pretty long cooldown. But he gets 12 Fang. If you're playing a Fang build and you need Fortress for some reason, it works well. Fang are great little units. I rate this somewhat. I wouldn't normally take it, but it's kind of fun. I've been actually toying with it in multiplayer recently, and I just enjoy it because I like that he's like dad, and he just like, or maybe mom, just giant bear mom, and he craps out a couple of little babies. You have the Overlord launcher. This decreases the fortress's decreases fortress attack interval by 50% and range by 20 meters. So normally what you'll see are these two paired together. That way you still have a slightly increased range, but now your fortress shoots every second, and he hits really hard. This is an extremely good upgrade if you're playing an Overlord dominant build, especially if you can come in with something like the Speed Specialist, or hope that you get the Speed Specialist later. That way he starts moving a little bit quicker, he's shooting fast, he's shooting hard, and he has a slightly extended range with the range enhancement. All of a sudden, your fortresses aren't just the centerpiece of the army, that is your army. These guys become insanely powerful. You have the Elite Marksman. So this would again go with if you're trying to make fortresses the centerpiece of your army. It increases the range by 8 and his attack damage by 23%. He has insane attack damage. You don't often need it to go much higher, so I'm not sure you really need this upgrade, but as just like a win more button, it's not bad. And it's really important to understand that in Mechabellum, everybody almost always has the same supply, and you always have the same time to deploy. This isn't like StarCraft, where you can just, at the 3-minute mark, get into your opponent's economy and kill all of his workers. Everybody always has time to be safe and make sense of this. So making one unit the most powerful unit in your army, it can work, but most units have a hard counter. Yeah, most units can get countered up pretty well. So I like this upgrade, but it's kind of unnecessary, at least in my mind. Double shot, Overlord shoots twice, reloads a little bit longer. Pair this with the Overlord launcher. If you really need to kill something, that's pretty good. Marksmen have this as well. Again, your Overlord hits, again, your fortress hits so hard that there's no real reason to have this, at least in my opinion. I haven't really ever used it. As you can tell, I haven't even unlocked it. I've never really seen it played, but okay.
What's rock? Okay, never mind.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We're getting there.
It's my favorite upgrade. Armor enhancement. Again, pretty darn good. You get extra HP, you reduce some of the damage coming in. The damage blocking does increase per level, so it's pretty good against small arms fire. Again, your fortress doesn't really suffer much against small arms fire, but that 30% HP is pretty good. On a big fat boy, making him 30% bigger, there's nothing wrong with that. So I think that this is a pretty okay upgrade. I'd give it maybe a B. I guess we should give these guys a rating, but it's not that kind of review. Finally, you have the Rocket Punch. Remember when I was asking you about Rock'em Sock'em Robots probably a week ago? This is why that came up. When the fortress hits a certain HP threshold, either 85 or 55%, it will shoot one of its hands, and that hand will impact, dealing 15,000 damage with a 25 meter splash radius. It is exceedingly good. Also,
increases by 15,000 per unit level increase.
Exactly. So at level 2, that's 30,000. Level 3, 45,000.
Yeah.
This thing becomes really good. It can demolish like a line of tanks or something, just because your giant units tend to die. Like that, it's not uncommon to have 1 or 2 survive through the round, but let's say you deploy 4, probably 3 or so are going to die if you win that round, because they're just so big. Other units are attracted to them because they take up so much space, because they tend to have higher HP pools. They are the ones that then get shot a lot. So having this as a way to keep that unit have a little bit of a power spike all the way through, and this is what I actually really like about this technology compared to a lot of the other technologies that we see in the game, is that when you deploy it, it's what you get, and that unit operates the exact same way throughout the battle. The Rocket Punch changes that. All of a sudden, you have a unit that has like an inbuilt technology, like a little self-destruct button, like the final blitz for the Rhino. That's the only other tech that I can think of that really makes a big difference as your HP drops, because your opponent now can't. The positioning becomes so much more important. Let's say you play a fortress right at the front, all right, and the opponent has a melting point, and he just puts it right in front of your fortress. Now the fortress is going to shoot that melting point once, maybe twice, and it's already shooting it with its cannons. So that's just a ton of extra DPS that you can put out on that, your fortress might actually kill that melting point if it's misplaced. So I really like this as kind of like a uh-oh button. I've built this fortress kind of in a weird way, just because I was testing a fun Fang build, and it worked out pretty well. I really enjoyed it, but why don't we hop over to the testing grounds? My co-host will be leaving me here, but I'll show you guys one of my weird little fortress builds, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Mwah. So I wanted to actually clear away some misconceptions with the fortress, as well as show off some of the kind of fun builds that we can do. So I've just paired the fortress off against a unit of steel balls. Steel balls are 200 supply, fortress is 400 supply. Steel balls are generally used as kind of like a mid to late game clear of giant units. But actually take a look at what happens here. So the fortress is going to engage. It still has 100 range. And these steel balls, it's a level 1 unit versus a level 1 unit. So there's no text, no nothing picked up. The fortress has no problem clearing them away. So I just wanted to show that off. The fortress will kill literally any ground unit besides a melting point, 1-to-1. Fortresses have no problem clearing them away. But often you won't find a fortress by its lonesome. So why don't we set up a couple of ways to actually use our fortresses very well, and then I'll show you a couple of ways to defeat the fortress. So I'll be right back. So I've set up a bit of a scenario here. What's been happening is that the Vulcan has been just decimating our front lines. It's been getting into our snipers, it's been dealing a lot of damage, so we've deployed a fortress with shields. And I want you to note how many units are being pulled in to try and attack this fortress with shields, and how much extra HP it's providing to these little Fang. All of these Fang in the center are able to survive, they're going to start pulling away sniper shots, and now the fortress is just a walking beacon, able to just deal so much damage inadvertently. The fortress itself hasn't gotten a lot of kills, only 35, but at this point, that's actually quite good. 36 is the allied top 2. It got a fortress down, it dealt a ton of damage over time, and again, pound for pound, a fortress should be able to deal with any non-flying unit besides a melting point. Now let's change things around ever so slightly and show you kind of one way that we can easily deal with a fortress, at least in this scenario. Of course, any flying unit would deal with that, but the most common thing that we can do here is just grab out a couple units of Stormcallers. Stormcallers have great AoE, great splash damage. Not only that, they hit really hard at 905 damage per Stormcaller shot. And Stormcallers shoot a lot of missiles. Let's watch this, and I'll show you guys kind of exactly how what a difference this will make. So look at this fortress's shield bar. Before, the entire battle had pretty much gone by before we were at such a low HP. Now, bam, the Fang support is gone. These crawlers are going to make it in. They're right into the front line. So if ever your opponent seems to be going very heavily into fortresses with shields, a very good answer, at least to the shields, are Stormcallers. Stormcallers are just a great answer to any ground-based giant unit anyways. Because they have good AoE, they're able to clear away all the chaff in front of those giants, and then also they do great damage against shields. So that would be my number one go-to if you're having a lot of trouble with fortresses and flying isn't an option for you. Of course, I'll throw out a couple of flying units here and just show you how quickly that does drop them. But more importantly, let's take a look at a Fortress Fang build, because that seems to be one of the most common ways to do things. So I'm just going to unlock some of the key upgrades that you would get on your fortress. Let's say this is like round 10 or something. I'll just add some extra cash here. Bop, bop, bop. Fantastic. I love the testing grounds. It's so good. Now let's drop a couple more fortress. So these guys are coming in with their heavy Fang support. The Fang have all of the upgrades that they need. And let's grab a couple extra of them. If ever you want to get units at a higher level, that's simply how you do it. Bam. Let's get 3 Fang. Of course, Fang move quicker than fortresses at this point in time. So you're going to want to position them a little bit further back than you would think. Or do the straight line method. That way some of the Fang are in line with your fortresses. So this might be a build that you see happening. You have your Fang fully upgraded or nearly fully upgraded. Normally they may or may not have this armor piercing, and then you have a couple of fortresses here. Now let's watch this engagement, and I'll leave those Stormcallers up for the enemy team. Look how much difference this will make. Of course, we spent several $1,000s on this side of the field, but I just wanted you to see what a difference it makes. These fortresses' shields still go down, and that's the power of it. Even with several $1,000s worth of shields, these Stormcallers are able to do huge damage, nearly killing the fortress, taking away a huge amount of the Fang. This is one of the best ways to deal with it. There goes the Rocket Punch, and we're going to win this hands down. Easy peasy. Let's demonstrate this with a little bit more power on the enemy's flank. I'm just hoping to give you guys a good general idea of what to do. So the enemy's like, oh crap, well I have a bunch of cash. You know what I'm going to grab? I'm going to grab some more Stormcallers. Yeah, let's make them level 2. Just because Stormcallers are a little bit more expensive than Fang. And then let's grab some Melting Points, again at level 2. Bam. Most important, well, I'll talk about these units later, but let's get them some range, just to kind of deal with this. Bow and pow. Let's grab a couple more Stormcallers. And then let's grab some chaff in the form of another couple of crawlers. Crawlers. I don't know why these aren't alphabetical. Maybe I'm crazy. I feel like they should be alphabetical just because it makes it really easy to see what's going on. There we are. Crawlers don't need to be very high level, but we just need a lot of them to come in at different points in time. And you also want them there to guard your giant units. Very important that you have something that's just slightly ahead of most of your giant units. That way enemy units will target them. Okay, let's watch this out now. Oops, I should have given them a couple more upgrades, but I just wanted to show you guys kind of the difference that will happen here. Obviously the shields drop exceedingly quickly because of the melting points. I'm afraid that the flanks might collapse here, but look at this melting point immediately on top of the fortress. Just annihilates it. So if you're getting a lot of, I don't want to call it fortress spam, but if you're dealing with multiple fortresses, oftentimes the best giant killers are giants themselves. I didn't spend nearly as much money as I previously had. That's that Rocket Punch really making a difference there. And it looks like this flank, although not won, this is very much going in the way of our bot player in this case. A lot more Stormcallers left on the field. So that's one way to play fortresses. That's one way to beat fortresses. I hope that this has helped you kind of learn a little bit more about the unit, as well as kind of explain some of the strategies and tactics that go in with them. If you enjoy these unit highlights in the Mechabellum University, please let me know, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next one.